I'm Mike.
I'm Sam. Let's get into it.
Are you the tallest one in the family? Not as tall? How does that work?
I'm the tallest. My father's about 5'10". My mother's about 5'5".
Whoa.
Everyone else is about 5'6.5", 5'7". The milkman's about 6'7".
Welcome to episode 12. So we're gonna do a bit of a basketball episode throughout the whole episode. Because a lot of news coming out that the basketball is about to return. NBA is looking at locations from Disney to Las Vegas to host the rest of their season. And a lot of the NBA teams are going to start to reopen with practices in those states that are lowering their stay-at-home orders. So our first little topic we're going to do, we did this in one of our NFL episodes. We're going to do an NBA Would You Rather. So me and Michael and I, we each comprised a list of 5 scenarios, and then we're going to present our topic to each person and see what they say. So you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my first would you rather. So would you rather win an MVP award or win a finals MVP award?
I think I'd rather win the finals MVP because that you're playing the best on the biggest stage in basketball.
Yeah.
Like if you win a regular season MVP, that doesn't say that you're not going to know if you're ever going to win a finals MVP or even a championship for that matter. Russell Westbrook never did it.
Yeah.
James Harden's never done it, and countless others before probably. But someone like Andre Iguodala, he's never won a regular season MVP, but he performed on the biggest stage and won that MVP. I think it's just it would be a huge honor because it can just take your name. Someone can take your name from being a low-level player to a household name. You saw that with Kawhi.
Yeah.
He was catapulted into the spotlight once he won that finals MVP.
That's true. That's a good point. I think an MVP, a regular season MVP award, does more for your legacy and kind of gets you more recognized in the grand scheme of things. We've seen both in the NBA and NFL, we've had some finals MVP and Super Bowl champion award winners kind of be unknown players for the rest of their careers. I know Cedric Maxwell, he's not that well known of a player. He won finals MVP in 1981 for the Celtics. So legacy-wise, it's probably important to win an MVP award. People know the name Charles Barkley more than they know Cedric Maxwell, but I think I'd rather win that finals MVP too. Like you said, not only are you winning a championship, which is not guaranteed if you have a great regular season, but you're the best player on the greatest stage, and your name is going to be cemented into that Larry O'Brien trophy and that ring forever. So, yeah, I would probably agree with you with that finals MVP.
Yeah. So my first one I'm going to do, you're LeBron James, say, would you rather have Anthony Davis on your team or Kyrie and Kevin Love? But don't like not with the coach, not with the rest of the bench. Which scenario would you have? Would you want Anthony Davis or Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'd rather have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love just because I think Kyrie Irving and LeBron's game they play better off of each other than Anthony Davis and LeBron plays. LeBron James is a point forward, and Kyrie Irving is really a shoot first, create first point guard where he's not going to be ball dominant unless he's trying to create for himself. So I think going back to that second stint in Cleveland, LeBron James did have, it was so important for him to have that really great scoring guard, which I really think the Lakers do miss with this new era of LeBron James basketball. Not only that, but it's so important for LeBron James to have a big man that could step out in the three-point line, shoot, also rebound. We've seen LeBron has had his most success with players like that, players such as Chris Bosh, players such as Kevin Love. I think with Anthony Davis is better than any teammate LeBron's ever played with. Quite honestly, even better than Dwayne Wade, who kind of started to deteriorate by the time LeBron even came to the Miami Heat. So even though Anthony Davis is a better basketball player, he's a better defender. You can even argue he's a better offensive player than both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. But I just think having two all-star level players, having two really good players who prove that they could be the best player on their teams. I think that's maybe a little bit more valuable than having one player that is for sure better than those two players, but I don't think by that wide of a margin to the point where it would justify taking one player over two players.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just better. Two is better than one in this scenario.
Yeah.
And Davis is an exceptional talent, but I think that you have the scoring ability of Kyrie Irving and being able to create his own shot, and Kevin Love, who is also you can get the ball to him and you know he's probably gonna get a basket. I think just having those two factors, it's better than having one player.
Yeah, for sure. So my next would you rather, these are actually just straight up two players. This is my only would you rather scenario with just two players, but would you rather have Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant?
That's funny because my first one that I came up with was would you rather have Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant take the last shot in a game?
Huh.
So I think I'd rather have Kawhi Leonard on my team.
Okay.
I know Kawhi has he's won championships. Kevin Durant's won championships as well, but I just think that Kawhi led that. Looking at Kawhi's playoff run last year, it was just insane. It was crazy to watch. I know that the Raptors did have their lineup wasn't the level of the Warriors, and these two even faced off, but Kevin Durant went down. But I think just Kawhi's performance in that finals and throughout the whole playoffs just showed that he's the best player. I think behind LeBron, he's the second best player in the league.
Yeah, so I don't think Kevin Durant has shown in a playoff setting that he's able to carry a team from first round to finals champion like Kawhi Leonard proved with that Raptors run, that great Raptors run. But I rather have Kevin Durant for this reason. I think Kevin Durant has increased his defensive game very much so. He's always had the tools to be a great defender, and I think he really pieced it together in Golden State. So while I do think Kawhi Leonard is still for sure a better defensive player than Kevin Durant, he's a better one-on-one defender, he's a better team defender. He could switch on to more players, I think, than Kevin Durant can. I still think Kevin Durant is not too far off of Kawhi Leonard's defensive prowess. Now, I just think Kevin Durant, I would choose him because he's just a better offensive player. The thing with Kawhi Leonard, he really needs to get to his spots to be successful on the offensive end. He needs to get to those baseline hot spots for him. He needs to shoot his kind of rhythm shots to get into a good rhythm on the offensive side. We've seen him struggle with his three-point shot a little bit with consistency in the playoffs when he did make that great run with the Raptors. But the thing is with Kevin Durant on the offensive side, he doesn't need to get to his spots. He could shoot anywhere on the court at any time. He's just a very dominant offensive basketball player. I still think he's the best offensive basketball player in the world. I really can't wait to see what he can do with that Nets team, but very tough one. That's why I choose it. I think they're both great defensive players and great offensive players.
Yeah, so going forward, I'll use my first one. Who would you rather take the last shot, though? Would it be Kawhi or Kevin Durant?
I also rather have Kevin Durant take the last shot. Kawhi Leonard maybe has had more buzzer beaters. He obviously had that very iconic buzzer beater to send them to the Eastern Conference Finals when he faced the 76ers, but Kevin Durant's also shown really clutch moments in his career, hitting that deep dagger three against LeBron in, I believe it was Game 3 of the NBA Finals, the first time Kevin Durant was on the Warriors playing in the finals. Again, he can just hit every shot on the court. He's a better three-point shooter than Kawhi Leonard is. I think he's a better two-point shooter than Kawhi Leonard is, and I think he finishes better around the rim than Kawhi Leonard does. So no matter who you have on Kevin Durant, he could still get a shot up and over them. It's just whether he's going to make it or not, and I'd probably bet on Kevin Durant making that shot.
Yeah, I think I agree with having Kevin Durant take the last shot, but I just think that with that final shot, the deep three, with Kevin Durant, I think it was less pressure on him during that shot because he knew that if they lost this game, they can just win the next games and win the finals. I think Kawhi, there's a lot, like the pressure on that shot that he made against the 76ers, which was much more immense on him to make that shot than Kevin Durant. So I think This one's a very close argument for who you would rather have the last shot.
Yeah, I just think Kevin Durant has consistently shown throughout his career he can hit those shots. Now, Kevin Durant's definitely come up short in some games, some moments, some series even, going back to when they were up 3-1 against the Warriors in 2016. He really shrunk in the moment. He didn't have a good game 6, really didn't have a good game 7 either. So I know in OKC there's a lot of pressure on Kevin Durant to be that only shooter on that team, to be the only spacer on that court. But again, I just think Kevin Durant's a better offensive player than Kawhi Leonard, so I'd rather have him take the last shot.
So what's your next one?
So my next one, a little bit interesting. Well, 2 players for 2 players. Would you rather have the Warriors backcourt with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, or the Rockets backcourt with James Harden, MVP, and Russell Westbrook, who's an MVP? So 3 out of the 4 players right here are MVPs. Who would you rather have?
So we're not counting the bench, right? It's just those 2 players to start.
Yeah, it's just, yep.
I think I'd rather have Curry and Klay Thompson. I think they really feed off one another, because I think Klay Thompson kind of struggles creating his own shot. So I think Curry can drive to the hoop or fake a 3, and he'll be able to find Klay Thompson open, and Klay Thompson really feed off Curry's creativity. But the problem with Harden and Westbrook, but Westbrook kind of fixed this throughout this year. He was kind of taking a backseat, and he was allowing James Harden to play better and take more shots and control the ball more. But I think just having those 2 players, they're very ball dominant players, and it's more of a me style for them. And Klay Thompson's not going to be that me type player. He knows that Steph Curry is going to be the predominant ball handler, and he'll just have to be a great spot shooter like he's been through his whole career.
Yeah, I just think the Rockets backcourt with Westbrook and Harden, I think their games are just a little bit redundant to be playing together. Now, they're both great players and they're going to make it work. But again, Russell Westbrook, not the greatest outside shooter, not even the greatest mid-range shooter. So with Russell Westbrook, he really, when James Harden driving kicks to Russell Westbrook, they kind of restart the offense, rather than if Steph Curry kicks it out to Klay Thompson is going to bang an open 3. So even though I think the Rockets as 2 individual players are better than the Warriors 2 individual players combined, I think, again, the Warriors backcourt just plays really well together. They have a better chemistry together. They've been playing longer together, and they've won championships together. So I think you got to go Warriors backcourt right there.
Yeah. So my next one, so we're going to go with the 2016. Would you rather have the 2016 number 2 overall pick in Brandon Ingram, or the 2017 number 3 overall pick in Jason Tatum? So this year they're both all-stars. Brandon Ingram averaged, I think, 2 more points than Tatum, but they both had great years. So who would you rather have?
I think I'd rather have Jason Tatum, just because I think his offensive game is just a little bit more well-rounded than Brandon Ingram's offensive game. Brandon Ingram does a great job with his length getting to the hoop, but I've really personally been disappointing with Brandon Ingram's development as an outside shooter. I thought he'd be a better 3-point shooter by this time in his career, and we've seen with Jason Tatum, he shot a lot of long stretches of games shooting over 40% at the 3-point line. He's great at creating his own shot. He's another player. He has almost every shot on the court. He can shoot mid-range. He can shoot 3s. He can drive. So I think just in that aspect that Jason Tatum is a bit of a better offensive player. And I think with Brandon Ingram, I think he's probably a better defender, but he has a lot of things to be left to be desired with Brandon Ingram's defensive game. You would think a guy with that much length would be a little bit better on the defensive side than Brandon Ingram really is. So for that reason, I would probably pick Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I would take Jason Tatum as well. Like you said, he has a more well-rounded offensive game. I think he's really what can be the number 1 guy for Boston. I know they have Kemba Walker. They kind of mesh well together. and they have a really great, well-rounded roster. But Brandon Ingram, like you said, he has some flaws in his game. You'd think he has the length like Kevin Durant, and you see Kevin Durant is a great shot blocker and rim protector, but Brandon Ingram isn't really that. And I think for him to be able to catapult himself above Jason Tatum and some of the other players in the league, he needs to really develop his defense ability and his deeper shots.
Yeah, I agree. Both really good young players. Both have shown improvement throughout their career, and I think will continue to.
Yeah.
So with my fourth, would you rather have Carmelo Anthony's career or Chris Bosh's career? Both drafted in the same draft, as we all know.
I think I kind of alluded to this in your first would you rather. I think I'd rather have Chris Bosh's career.
Yeah.
Winning the championships, there's no greater feeling than that. And even when you look at those Heat teams, Bosh can be seen as the second best player because Dwayne Wade was kind of on the tail end of his career, injuries, he had knee problems, and a lot of people know when they look at those Heat teams, the second name that can come up is Chris Bosh, and he played well in those series, and he's part of that Ray Allen 3-point shot. He got the rebound to pass out to him. Carmelo, he's a great player, great offensive player, but kind of he'll be forgotten in the folds of history sometimes because he's never won a championship. The only really notable thing he's done is having the most gold medals for an American for basketball and winning that scoring title one year. But I don't think his career really matches up to someone like Chris Bosh.
Yeah, I think I would pick Chris Bosh too, but I think even people underestimate Chris Bosh's personal accolades. He carried that Raptors franchise for a very long time. He has so many all-star games under his belt, and he really was just a great player in his prime. And he's a player where his career came to really a sudden halt, and he just never played again. He really never had a sharp decline, or I can't point to a season where I say, oh, Chris Bosh started getting worse right there. He kind of went from really good NBA player to heart problems and out of the league, which is just an absolute shame with Chris Bosh. But not only did Carmelo Anthony's career end pretty poorly in terms of went to the Thunder, didn't work out, went to the Rockets, didn't work out, went to the Trailblazers, and he's a decent player on the Trailblazers. But again, Chris Bosh with those 2 finals rings, I mean, that's something Carmelo Anthony does not have and most likely never will have. So definitely the championships over the personal accolades right there, even though I don't even think Chris Bosh's accolades are too far off of Carmelo Anthony's.
Yeah. So my next one, so let's give it a 4-year span or 3-year span.
Okay.
So you're a team. You make the playoffs 1 year out of 3 years. You're an 8 seed, and you go on a magical run and make the finals, but you lose the finals. Or would you rather be like a 3 seed or a 4 seed, but you never make it past the second round within those 3-year span? So you're kind of like the Knicks in 1999. They were an 8 seed and they lost to the Spurs in the finals. Or you're like the Clippers with Blake Griffin and Chris Paul.
Yeah, so I think for organization stability, the second scenario you said would probably be better, and you're that 3-4 seed, you're hovering around a good team every single year, and then you probably just face really tough teams in the playoffs that'll knock you out. But I'd much rather have the 8 seed Cinderella story go to the finals and lose, because you're cemented in NBA history with you're the 8 seed and you climb out of your conference on top, and the expectations going into those final series, even though you are representing your conference, still are really low because you are that 8 seed. So even if you lose, your season is such a success as an 8 seed, rather than if you keep losing in the playoffs as a 3 seed, we're going to look back at that era, especially that Lob City era, and say that was ultimately a failure because they were supposed to do so much more than losing in the first or second round of the playoffs every year because they were such a good team. Rather, if you have a team that wasn't too good, struggled in the regular season, ended up going into the NBA Finals, that's something that it's better for just looking back on it and remembering a great team.
Yeah, I would pick the 8 seed as well. Just you go down history as one of those magical teams. A lot of people will remember you more than the team that, or a lot of people remember you in a more positive way by being an 8 seed that goes to the finals rather than being a 3 seed that can't make it past the second round. So people remember that team in a negative way. I think it'll be better for your organization, even if you don't make the playoffs within that 3-year span. I mean, for the 2 other years, but I think it's just better for everybody associated with that team to make the finals.
Yep. So my last would you rather, I'm kind of going back to the 1980s here. Let's say the season is 1980. Who would you rather start your franchise with? Larry Bird, a rookie Larry Bird, or a rookie Magic Johnson?
That's a good question. That's hard. I think I'd rather have Magic Johnson on my team. I think it's not a flaw of Larry Bird, but just looking at those Celtics teams, they were so stacked.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this later on in today's episode, but the Magic really kind of transcended the point guard position as being not being a small point guard. He was big. He was I don't know his height off the top of my head, but he was a large guy and he can finish in the paint well. And a lot of that inspired a lot of people. You see Penny Hardaway in the 90s being a tall, lanky point guard, and even now Lonzo Ball and maybe LaMelo Ball. It just really revolutionized the point guard position as to someone that can be the main face of a franchise. And I think looking at his career, he won the Finals Rookie of the Year, our Finals MVP as a rookie.
Yep. Which is just absolutely incredible. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I would have Magic Johnson, both great players, both all-time players. I know in some great mid-'80s seasons where the Lakers were winning championships, Larry Bird was still winning those MVPs. So Larry Bird was such a great player in his own respect. But again, I would have Magic Johnson just at the fact at the defensive side of the ball, Magic Johnson was an absolute animal. He can guard the 1, he can guard the 2, he can guard the 3, the 4, the 5 even. We saw his rookie year in those finals series. He really played the center position as a rookie point guard, which is absolutely unprecedented. That'll probably never happen again in NBA history. He's just such a great leader, such a great figure, really the figurehead of those Showtime Lakers. Such an iconic team. I mean, full personality. Even from a marketing standpoint, you rather have Magic Irving Johnson than Larry Bird, who was just kind of business, play basketball, really tough player. But Larry Bird, you can argue that he had a more well-rounded offensive game as he was also a great passer, and he was obviously a great scorer as well. But Magic Johnson, make no mistake about it, he can get you 30 a night if he really wanted to.
And even Magic can get you 30 a night, but also he was able to pass the ball around. He can get you 30 and 10 a night and 30 and 15. He was just able to open up a lot of things for the whole team, which transcends the whole team. That makes the whole team on another tier.
Yep.
All right, so with my last one, we kind of talked about it in a different episode, but I just want to go in more depth. If you're a 5-star high school recruit, would you go NCAA route or would you go the G League route?
That's a tough one. That is a tough one. That's good to talk about right now, definitely, because you see all these 5-star recruits starting to go to the G League, and I know it's so hard for me to say I'd rather go to the NCAA when you have $500,000 sitting right in front of you, but if you're looking towards the future and you're looking kind of from hindsight at the situation, I think I'd rather go to the NCAA and get a year of college ball under my belt rather than go to the G League for a couple reasons. One reason, just as a human being, I think to miss out on that college experience, even if it's a year, rather than start your adult life right away, jump into your job right away, I think it's a little bit better to ease into it, kind of learn how to be a professional, which would be better if you took the G League route. But I think just the kid aspect, going to college is obviously fun, but not only that, you just have so much national exposure as an NCAA college athlete rather than the G League. The G League still has a lot of trouble filling the stands, getting people to watch on TV, and I think you can make the argument that the NCAA in a lot of aspects will further your development as not only a team basketball player, but just being able to perform in big stages. I know a lot of NBA players, there's been players who have come from small schools but have done really good and have kind of just not been able to adjust to the limelight that is the NBA. And I think if you're a 5-star recruit, you're going to go to a great program like Duke, who is playing nationally televised games week in and week out, playing against great opponents like UNC, and you get to go to March Madness where the entire country's watching. I think that puts much more pressure on a young man than going to the G League and facing grown men would. So I just think from that perspective, and I think you still have a better chance of getting a better draft position if you are an NCAA athlete rather than G League. So I would probably pick NCAA.
Yeah, I'd also pick the NCAA. Just like with the G League, I think what you talked about with like being the spotlight and viewership. Not much people are gonna watch the G League. That might change now because of the talent going to it. But I think just with the NCAA, you have March Madness. Millions of people watch it every year. You see people like Fred VanVleet with Wichita State. He was able to put a magical run together, and that really kind of put him in the spotlight. And a lot of people recognized his name before he went to the NBA. And you saw some Kemba Walker having probably the best March Madness run of all time, and people just really knew him. And now he's known as one of the best college basketball players of all time and one of the best tournament runs of all time. And that put him in the spotlight. So I think just being able to play in front of millions of people and getting your name recognition to a higher level when you're only 19 years old is a lot more beneficial than the G League might be, even though the rewards that you can get from going to the G League with the $500 or $500,000 contract and the shoe contracts you can potentially sign.
Yeah, and even if you start betting on yourself and you think you're going to be a great NBA player and you want to make the Basketball Hall of Fame one day, I think it's better for your legacy to have a really good NCAA season, possibly be a national champion, rather than be a G League champion. I think in the Basketball Hall of Fame, I think for sure a national champion would hold more weight.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to our next topic. Since The Last Dance documentary showing a lot of old school footage, we've been seeing a lot of old school jerseys. So we decided to do our top 5 NBA jerseys of all time. So you want to go first or should I?
I'll go first. So many great jerseys, so many iconic jerseys. I think what's important with picking great top 5 NBA jerseys of all time, not only do the jerseys have to be great, but usually great players have had to worn those jerseys that we're talking about. Otherwise, they wouldn't be as iconic as they are today, looking back on them. So I think 4 out of the 5 jerseys on my list are just great jerseys, but fantastic players and teams that play in those jerseys. So I think my number 1 favorite jersey of all time are the 1970s Nets Stars and Stripes jerseys that Julius Erving famously wore. Really drew inspiration from those jerseys. Me and Sam's YouTube banner is a picture of Julius Erving in those Stars and Stripes jerseys. They're just so iconic with the stars running down the side of the jersey with the red stripe, the red Nets with the white uniform. I mean, you had some great Nets teams playing those jerseys as well. Just very iconic, very American. I just really love those jerseys.
Yeah, I love that jersey. Dr. J, I love Dr. J. I read it like when I was in 3rd grade. I read like an autobiography about him. It was a very large book, so it took me a while as a 3rd grader. But I really love that jersey. I would want to buy it on countless occasions. It's iconic. It was one of my honorable mentions. It didn't make my top 5.
Ooh, okay.
With my number 1 jersey, it was only in the league for 5 years, but I had the Vancouver Grizzlies.
Yeah.
It's kind of making a resurgence now as an alternate jersey for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yep.
But it's just, you see in the 90s with football, basketball, and hockey, they always had there were some crazy designs. You had the Vancouver Grizzlies, you had the Pistons, You had the Rockets later, and in hockey you had the Islanders with the Fishermen. But I think the color of the Vancouver Grizzlies, the font, it just looks really awesome.
Yeah, very unique with the teal blue. I don't think we'll ever see that again be implemented into a jersey or a color scheme for an NBA team, which is really interesting, really stand out. I do love the Vancouver Grizzly logo too, that big grizzly on the jersey. Really cool jerseys, can't go wrong with those. So my number 2 jersey of all time, grew up watching LeBron, and by far my favorite LeBron jersey of all time were those navy alternate jerseys they wore from 2005 to 2010. Still probably the most expensive LeBron jersey you can find to wear. A lot of his early shoes had the color scheme of this jersey. You had the classic blue with the gold, red, and blue stripe running down the sides of the jersey with the red and the gold. I just think they're absolutely beautiful jerseys. I think it's the best jersey LeBron James has ever worn in his career. So iconic player, iconic jersey.
Yeah, I like those jerseys. I love those jerseys. But another Heat jersey, it didn't make my top 5, but another LeBron jersey, mostly on the Heat, or basically on the Heat.
Yeah.
But I like the hot white jerseys with the white and all white. Those are really nice. I was considering those for my top 5. But my number 2 jersey, another 90s look. I had the Raptors, the purple one with the dinosaur on the front. Just again, going with that trend of those crazy designs. I feel like in the time of the 90s, if you were a kid in the 90s, you would really hate those jerseys. Those are ugly, but I think just with the style now, they're coming back. Notable players, they had Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, and they were just really popular, and they were really nice with the purple. And then the dinosaur is just a great touch.
Yeah, the Raptors were a newer team to the NBA. They were trying to really market themselves, and they put together some really iconic jerseys and iconic players like Vince Carter, like Tracy McGrady, where not only were the jerseys so fun to see on the court, but those teams were so fun to see on the court despite them not having ultimate success. I mean, just watching Vince Carter fly high with those jerseys, absolutely iconic. Love that pick. Another honorable mention for me, for sure. But my number 3 favorite jersey of all time, pretty simple design, but again, iconic team, probably my favorite team of all time, which were the Bad Boy Pistons, just home jerseys. Those blue jerseys were so iconic with the red letters. I just think they're very simple, yet just very eye-popping. Color scheme is great. I think they're better than the Piston jerseys that they have now. I like when there's not a lot of white on the jersey, but kind of the outline of the jersey's white, which these jerseys do have. Obviously, you have Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer wearing these jerseys. I mean, they just really represented toughness, and that's what the Pistons brought to the table back in the late 80s, early 90s. So,
yeah, those jerseys are super nice. Just when you think about this jersey, you think about the Bad Boys and what they were able to accomplish, winning back-to-back championships, and just like everybody around the league just hated those Pistons, and I just love those jerseys. And I think me and you, we share a bond over those Bad Boy Pistons.
Yeah.
So with my number 3, it was partially in the 90s, but I have the Seattle Supersonics before they rebranded into that with the space, kind of the Seattle skyline. I had them before with just the arch and it said Seattle. They won the championship in that jersey in 1979. It's just really simple. It has the green, white, and yellow outline. Gary Payton and Sean Kemp wore it earlier in their career. Like I said, they wore it in the finals when they won, and then it kind of made a resurgence later on when they drafted Kevin Durant. I think those jerseys are super nice, and I always loved Seattle Supersonics. When I played 2K, I relocated a team and rebrand them as the Seattle Supersonics.
Yeah, Seattle really deserves an NBA team. I think more than a lot of markets that do have NBA teams right now, but that's another team where we'll never see a color scheme on a jersey quite like those Seattle Supersonics. I really like the shade of green the Supersonics have compared to other teams that wear green today, specifically the Bucks. I think the Bucks still have good jerseys, but yeah, those Seattle Supersonics teams, very iconic as well. Had some great players, Gary Payton, but really good jerseys as well. I like that pick. So with my number 4 best NBA jersey of all time, probably maybe arguably the most iconic jersey of all time, and those were the Showtime Laker gold home jerseys. Now, I did dock them a little bit for the short shorts because I think the short shorts have to be considered into the entire jersey. And while I'm not the biggest fan of the short shorts, of course, the Bad Boy Pistons had those short shorts as well.
Short shorts are making a comeback.
Yeah, people do like the short shorts, but I'm not the biggest fan. Anyway, just so iconic. You had Magic Johnson running the floor with James Worthy on the baseline with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the middle. I mean, Kurt Rambis, just some great players. Michael Thompson, summed up just the swiftness, the fast break. I mean, just such iconic jerseys run down the court. One of my favorites of all time for sure.
Yeah, those just, when you think of NBA, you think of the Lakers, you think of the Celtics. Those jerseys are just super nice. They're just simple. They're not really too much going on. Just really nice overall. So for my number 4 pick, another 90s selection, I did the Utah Jazz purple jerseys with the mountain range. It's just worn by Stockton and Malone when they faced off against Jordan in those finals. I don't know, they're super nice. I just love how they have the mountain range, and it's just like the purple and the white, they just go great together. And not much there to say.
Yeah, I really don't like the rebranded Jazz jerseys with the mainly blue color scheme. I really do love those old iconic Jazz jerseys with, again, like you said, John Stockton playing the Bulls in the finals multiple times. Really great jerseys. I agree with that. So with my number 5 favorite jersey of all time, one of my personal favorites, I know a lot of shoes have been kind of created from this color scheme, and that is the Miami Heat, Miami Vice jerseys. They started wearing them in 2017, so Dwayne Wade only had 1 season under his belt with those jerseys. Not a lot of iconic players have worn those jerseys. We have Jimmy Butler now in that Heat squad, but just absolutely awesome jerseys. I know LeBron has some LeBrons with the Miami Vice color scheme. Not a big pink guy, but this shade of pink with the blue, I just think is absolutely sharp, and I think it just looks fantastic, honestly.
Yeah, I think Nike did a really great job when they got the rights to make the NBA jerseys. They kind of created a jersey like that, an alternate jersey that represents each city, and this Miami one is really like, it just looks like the Miami nightlife with the purple, the pink, and the blue. It just really looks really nice.
Yeah,
so my last one, kind of a forgotten jersey. I have the white New Orleans Hornets jerseys before they became the Pelicans. So it's white and has the blue, like teal blue pinstripe going down it. It was worn by Chris Paul, and they kind of had it as an alternate jersey when Anthony Davis was on the team. It's just really simple and really nice. I really like it.
Those were great.
Yeah, not a lot of people remember these ones, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah, those were great jerseys as well. You had 1 season, and for a couple games stretch, you had kind of a spin on that jersey, but it said Oklahoma City when they relocated to Oklahoma City. So those jerseys too, little spin on the jersey you just said, those are iconic. I mean, those are really nice jerseys too. I remember in old 2K teams, I would always be the Hornets just for their jerseys, quite honestly.
All right, so moving on. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball, but with The Last Dance, they talked about this in the first couple episodes. We reviewed an old basketball game, and one of them we picked was a Chicago Bulls versus Celtics game, most notably the 1986 Game 2 of the first round, where Jordan set the all-time record for points in the playoff or a single game with 63. So we watched this whole game. It's on YouTube. We'll put it in the description. You guys can watch it yourself. But we're just going to share our thoughts with the game. So overall, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of this game. I know it's
Yeah.
It was a double overtime thriller, if you want to say that. Air quotations around thriller.
Yeah.
It was just kind of boring. I'm not gonna lie. There was just a lot of fouls, a lot of stoppage. It wasn't fast paced like the normal. I mean, kind of just because the era we grew up in, we were used to fast basketball. This was just kind of slow. And then the announcers kept saying, these Bulls are just so much faster, and I was just like, I don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, he kept using the word foot speed in the video, and I really didn't see anybody stand out in terms of quickness. Even Jordan, I think, because the Bulls really were relegated to a half-court offense where Jordan really wasn't able to show off his full athleticism. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Jordan only had one dunk this entire game, so
Yeah.
I don't think he put on an absolutely athletic show. Now, Jordan, I mean, he'll catch your eye with his hang time in the air when he goes for a layup or a floater or anything of that nature is just out of this world. But some takeaways I had, me and Sam kind of laughed at the fact that I think maybe this is just 1980s Boston Celtics fans and Boston Garden kind of just attire, but I didn't see one jersey in the crowd. I didn't see one Celtics shirt in the crowd. I just saw kind of people coming in regular street clothes just cheering on their Celtics team. So I thought that was a little bit funny. Yeah, just business casual, get out of work and go to a Celtics game, which I kind of thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was just like the whole game. It was so quiet, so you can hear every whistle, every dribble of the ball, everything the player said after the fact when the whistle was blown. It was just really quiet and just different from what we see nowadays. But obviously, the big standout of this game is Michael Jordan's 63 points. But it's just incredible that he attempted 21 free throws and made 19 of those, so he had 19 points off the free throw line. So he had 41 points. He had 0 threes. He made 0 threes. So it was all of his points were in the paint. My favorite Michael Jordan moment was in this game. It might be yours too. I'm not sure. But when he's on the base and he dribbles through his legs while Larry Bird's on him and splashes a mid-range shot right in Larry Bird's face. That's just one of the iconic Jordan moments. A young Jordan.
Yeah, very iconic. And going off of the point you said about Jordan, not only did Jordan not make a three-point shot that entire game, but the entire Bulls roster did not make a three-point shot that entire game. And only two players that game made a three-point shot, and that was Danny Ainge and Larry Bird, both on not good efficiency. And that's another takeaway I really got from this game. I really noticed how I thought both teams were taking very inefficient shots. They're taking contested hook shots, contested mid-range shots, and really just a lot of contested shots around the rim. So it kind of makes me think if analytics were in the NBA or just in the world, quite honestly, in the era of the 80s basketball, then I would be interested to see which play style they would play with, because I really don't think they would play with the play style that they were playing with, because, again, they're taking a lot of inefficient, contested shots in the paint. The paint was always very clogged. And another thing I really noticed was the amount of double teams that were implemented both by the Bulls but also by the Celtics, especially on Jordan. You really saw that the team's lack of three-point shooters or even just perimeter shooters in general really caused the defenses to be able to hone in and suck in on one player. And when that player would pass the ball to the open man, the other team would just kind of dare that player to shoot, even a mid-range too, and usually it wouldn't go in. So really just a different skill set of that 80s basketball really allowed for really more difficult drives to the basket, more difficult mid-range shots, I believe.
Yeah, and since they didn't have a scoreboard and you couldn't really keep track of the points, if you watch the game, you couldn't really tell that. I mean, for me, I don't know about anyone else watching the game. I just couldn't tell that Michael Jordan had 63 points.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It was he kind of had an underwhelming performance. I'm not going to lie. Unpopular opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think both Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, I was a little disappointed in their play. And I think you can say, oh, how are you disappointed with a 63-point game? But I still think they both left a lot of things to be desired on the basketball court. Michael Jordan, with 60 seconds to go in the game, had an open baseline shot, and he shot an air ball, which could have won them the game and not sent them to overtime. Larry Bird, with 10 seconds to go in the game, he put up a horrible shot, just a bad basketball IQ shot, which I really was surprised to see out of Larry Bird. At the end of the game, it was funny. They were down 3 points, the Bulls, and Michael Jordan had a 3-point shot, and he missed it. But Kevin McHale was called for a foul, and if you rewatch that shot, it was very obviously not a foul. It was just a big flop by Jordan. So people like to say LaFlop and LeBron James flops, which is most certainly true, but I think it's kind of ignored in just today's basketball that flopping has always been a part of the game, and just acting and trying to get your team the upper hand with winning, however that may be, maybe by flopping. It's always been a part of the game. That's just something I kind of wanted to highlight. Another things that I think Jordan left on the court, he missed a baseline shot with a minute to go in the first OT. Larry Bird had a really, really uncharacteristically bad travel with 40 seconds to go in the first OT. Jordan, I was very unimpressed by his defense as well. I don't want to make this segment just a hating on Jordan. He had a great game. He had 63 points. His team was not too good around him. He was completely outmatched by an absolutely Hall of Fame riddled Celtics team, but really didn't play that great defense on Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge got an easy layup on him a couple times. Jordan missed an open 2 to win the game at the end of the first OT, and Larry Bird also missed a 3 at the end of the first OT to miss. So a lot of things to be desired from both great players.
Yeah, just some backstory on this game. The Bulls went 30-52 and still made the playoffs, so they were the 8th seed.
Yep.
Jordan missed the majority of the year with a broken foot, and even when he was able to play, he was on strict minute restrictions. So I think he could only play like even like to the millisecond. He couldn't go over it. So if he reached his time, he had to get out of there. But
yeah,
they took the minute restriction off once he made the playoffs, and that's why you see he erupted with 63 points, and he had 49 the game before, which was crazy. But also another point I want to talk about is Larry Bird was scoreless up until I think about halfway through the second quarter, and then he had 36 points, which is just that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Larry Bird, I mean, they're very Kevin McHale centric in the first 2 quarters of the game. I mean, the entire Celtics offense ran through, they dribble it up the court.
Yeah.
They kick it into Kevin McHale, and Kevin McHale would either make a shot from the post or kick it out. So Kevin McHale really highlighted what a great player he was, but really highlighted also Larry Bird didn't have the pressure of being the number 1 player on his team, the number 1 scoring option, just game in and game out, quarter in and quarter out. Even though we saw him come up huge in the fourth quarter in those overtimes, he really wasn't asked to do much. And I thought it was incredible that the Bulls only led 58-53 or 51, I'm sorry, at halftime. Meanwhile, the Celtics shot 38% from the field at half. So they had a really poor first half of shooting, and they were still really in that game. So I think it would be plausible to really look at that game at halftime and say, oh, the Celtics are going to win, because they're not going to shoot that bad going into the second half of the game, which really ultimately did happen.
Yeah, I think the Bulls kind of just let this game go. I think they could have easily won. They're leading for the majority of the game, and they just collapsed. And, I mean, Danny Ainge exploded with 24 points, I think. 24 points, yeah. And
Yep.
They could have easily won this game. All the Celtics starters were in foul trouble, and Bill Walton fouled out. Dennis Johnson fouled out, and Bird, Ainge, and Parrish all had 5 fouls. So I think this was the Celtics won the game, but the Bulls lost pretty. They could have won. They're in position to win for the whole game, and then they just fell apart.
Yeah, I mean, going off of that Dennis Johnson point, he did foul out. He was guarding Michael Jordan the majority of the game when he was in. And Dennis Johnson is really revered to be one of the best perimeter defenders in the 80s, but he really was no match for Michael Jordan, which really proves how great Michael Jordan was. I mean, the only time Michael Jordan really had a bad miss is if he really gets swallowed up into the paint by other players or he's trapped into a double team, which did happen quite often in this game. But another thing I took away from this game, which is kind of just, I think, the style of 80s basketball, is all 5 guys on the court at all time, they're either shooting the basketball on offense or they're going for that offensive rebound. You saw so many second chance points by the Celtics in the first quarter, in the second quarter, which really allowed them to stay in that game. But just really nobody leaking out and not trying for that offensive board. Everybody was going for a defensive rebound. Everyone was going for an offensive rebound. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe we'll review a 90s game in the future, but I just want to see how like Jordan's game translate into the 90s and how we can compare these two games from just like a different to 5 years, even looking at a 1990 game. But that's it. That's all we have for you guys today. We hope you enjoyed. You guys should watch this Bulls game too. Tell us what you think. But thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.